Yeah, we're live. Hi, guys.
Buried inside a U.S. space Buried inside a U.S. Space Force recruitment video is something astonishing. It is a quiet but massive disclosure about foreign powers building bases on the moon. Watch this.
When foreign powers can build bases on the dark side of the moon, when private companies are inventing a new economy beyond our planet, we need to stay one step ahead of the future. The future is where we'll make history.
So why would they say that? What do they know that we don't? Well, our next guest knows it well. She considers herself a survivor of the United States secret space program. She's seen these bases. She's seen these craft. She's really seen the dark side of this technology in a way that very few people have. Niara Isley is a former auto track radar operator with the United States.
Hey, Di, good to see you.
She was involved.
Diane, it's my birthday today, and I'm going out for lunch. I'm only going to do this one. I'm only doing this one, and I'm going out to lunch. It's 11 o'clock here, so I've got to be at lunch by 1.
In the secret space program, and she calls herself a survivor of the secret space program for reasons we'll get into here on the show. She is a whistleblower. She's an author. She's a speaker. She has an incredible book called Facing the Shadow, Embracing the Light, which you can find on Amazon. And Niara,
thank you, Diane.
Again,
I wish you were here. I'd have a beer with you.
Great to see you.
Thank you very much for having me, Clayton. I very much appreciate it.
It was time for us to talk again. And I think it's time for us to talk again because it seems like there's been an awakening, an awareness now, more and more discussions about what the United States government knows, what they've been actively involved with. Catherine Austin Fitts recently sat down with Tucker Carlson, where she talked about the massive secret bases in cities underneath the United States. What compelled you to want to talk again, Niara?
What compelled me to want to talk again? Most of my life I've been a speaker on UFO subjects, or UAP. I'll just say UAP is a term that I think that the government started to use to try to take control of the narrative around UFOs once more, because they really lost control of the narrative. Anyway, so UAP is the new term. Anyway, what made me want to talk again is to talk as much as a patriot of my country, which I took an oath to serve, as an experiencer of secret space program abuse. That's why I wanted to talk again. What I really want is to help people understand, because I did tons of research in my book. It's 530 pages.
A lot of these secret space program whistleblowers, they say that they serve for 20 years and then get taken back to 20 years when they're back to where they started. They're that young again. I don't think that's really what's going on.
And it's comprehensive. So if you're looking for light reading, this is not your book. But I just really want people to understand how we arrived at the mess that we're in today. That I hope is.
I know. I wonder what that is.
That I feel down in my bones is getting sorted out. It's just really messy.
It was doing that on the laptop yesterday, Di. Now it's doing it on the tablet here. That purple crown thing.
Because of what we're up against, like the LA riots, these No Kings demonstrations across the country, and I just feel like if people really know the history of how we got to this place, it will give them understanding and maybe some measure of peace, understanding how we got here, and some understanding that we must never allow this to happen to our country again, because we very nearly lost our country. And I was a follower of Q. I paid a lot of attention to the Q drops when that was active, and I feel like it was some faction within deep within the government that was trying to save our country, trying to put a trickle of very cryptic information out there to help inform citizens that were really interested in what's happening to our country and trying to save it, that there was a plan in place working to save our country, and a very well thought out one and a very comprehensive one. And the reason I believe in it is because with all the research I did for my own book and all the things I learned and all the things I put in there to educate people, besides just telling the story about my experiences, if I exist and I know all this information, then there have to be people out there for whom duty and honor and loyalty to their country still means something. They still hold that in their heart and in their being, just as I do. And they have more resources and more knowledge than I have, and they have to have a plan. Because one of the things that came out when I researched my book was the fact that the globalists have been really organized for a very long time, perhaps going back hundreds of years. I haven't gone back that far, otherwise my book would have been in 5 volumes. But I did go back to
7.3. Wow.
And post World War II times. And there was something that happened after World War II where we defeated the Nazis in Germany, at least ostensibly. But we wanted to know what the Nazi scientists who worked in the concentration camps and who worked for their Nazi regime, we wanted to know the science that they knew. So those scientists were brought over to the United States. Some of them were given more American-sounding names, and they were put to work in various branches of our government, as in space and aeronautics. Werner von Braun was put to work in that area. A lot of these people that we brought over and put to work in our government under Project Paperclip,
hey, Bas, good to see you, bro.
World War II, were still ardent Nazis. And I believe they began to subvert our government from within. And with the secrets they brought, with the technology and everything else like that, they used the development of certain technologies.
I'll tell you what, Bas, them guys who get scammed, they're fools. They're dead set idiots. I can see how they get scammed.
As a bait,
Hey,
they would make a lot of money when released to the public, or used in government contract work. They would make a lot of money. So a lot of people were seduced into a relationship with these Nazi scientists with the promise of money, big money. The point I really want to make here, plain and simple, is the real Nazis in our government are the ones that have been taking payoffs, the ones that have been keeping secrets, the ones that have been running programs in concert with the Nazis for human trafficking and experimenting on human beings in our country. And right after the Roswell crash, Truman signed into law something called the National Security Act of 1947. And this act, to me, was way more about creating...
Diane, I heard Trump called his followers weak.
An impenetrable curtain of secrecy around these secret black projects than it was ever had to do with national security.
Diane, I wonder what's going on with that list, because that Pam Bondi, she said they're going to release it later on, and then up comes Trump and says there's no such thing as a list. I wonder what's going on there. Is Trump on that list?
Meant that if you were harmed in a black project and you gathered your evidence and you went into a court of law and you presented your evidence, they would shut you down and throw your case out of court for reasons of national security. We can't prosecute this. We can't even hear this in court because it touches on matters of national security. So how is someone who's been harmed in a black project supposed to get any kind of compensation under that kind of thing? So basically, it created a wall of secrecy around these black projects, and they have operated and flourished in our country for decades. long before Trump arrived on the political scene. These things were flourishing behind closed doors, and these ardent Nazis were subverting with their ideologies. And there was a man who's passed away and is no longer with us. His name was Jim Marrs. He wrote a book called The Fourth Reich. And I'm quite sure, I didn't get a chance to read it, but I'm pretty sure it was about the Fourth Reich that was incubating in the United States of America and then springing into being flourished. We go back to President Eisenhower in his farewell speech, where he warned about the rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. And only a knowledgeable and well-informed citizenry has a chance to bring this to a halt or keep it under control. But then censorship took over, and our country's population was not well informed. All the information that we needed to try to put a stop to this Nazi growth in our country, we didn't have it because it was censored. Censorship has been going on for a lot longer than the last 4 to 8 years. It's been going on a lot longer. In fact, the CIA, this is information from George Knapp. When he researched, he said,
"Yeah, Diane, now you're number 2, and where am I? I'm number 3."
that the CIA actually instituted a program of ridicule for anybody that saw a UFO. They wanted to keep that stuff under wraps. Okay, so if you saw a UFO back in the 40s and 50s, you were drunk or you were crazy. And people back then, they really cared about what their neighbors thought of them. So if they saw a UFO, they kept quiet about it.
Hey, check this. Powerball has jackpotted too.
So at every turn, we have been censored. We have had knowledge denied to us, and that has been a breeding ground in secrecy for the mess that we're seeing in our country today. And the people that are calling the Trump administration and Trump and his followers Nazis have it exactly backwards. The people that are the Nazis are the ones that have proliferated censorship and secrecy and developed the situation that's in our country right now. They're screaming mad because their agenda has been taken away from them.
Diane, just before I started streaming, I seen something about Israel. They've done the red heifer sacrifice. They've done the real red heifer. It wasn't a practice run. They've actually done it and mentioned Noahide laws and things like that. So I think they've already done the burnt offerings with the red cow.
Right. It's complete obfuscation, right?
Yeah.
You're actually pointing the finger at the wrong group. You should be pointing it right back at yourself and the leftist globalist.
And if you really want to know what they're up to, out there on the dark web, and I've never seen it, and I will not look at it because I have enough bad memories of my own. Okay, I'm a secret space program survivor, and I have some terrible memories that I carry to the grave. We can get into a few of them later if you want to.
That's why I'm so
passionate about this subject and so passionate about wanting to make a contribution of knowledge to the American public about how this got started. So on the dark web, there is a video out there.
That brother, each one, I believe it too, Diane. I wasn't sure on Trump up until he started doing that snake parable and then sympathy for the devil at his rallies from the Rolling Stones. Man, especially the snake parable.
Called Frazzle Drip. And it is about a certain high-ranking politician and her aide torturing a 12-year-old girl to death. And so if you have the intestinal fortitude to go out and look at that video and see for yourself who that politician is, go for it. But
it's killery. I can tell you that it's killery.
but I warn you, if you see those images, they will haunt you to the rest of your life. Okay, another thing that people can do to learn who the real
I think we
Nazis
should
are.
we should maybe point out that if that video exists and you can search it out, it allegedly shows Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Oh, John.
Yeah.
So
I knew it was her.
Seek that video out. You know, that's on you to do it. Not we're not.
It's really horrific. Yeah, you know the story about that. And the 5 detectives that watched that video, 4 of them are dead.
We're not asking you to look for it.
No. Just, you know, it's just, if you want to know some truth, badly enough, go take a look. The other thing you could do is read Kathy O'Brien's book, Transformation of America. Now, she a lot of the information in her book was put together as a case that she took into court to try to get compensation for her human trafficked and sex slave life, you know, from childhood, you know, actually from babyhood all the way up to almost 30 years old. She was used for sex. She was used for labor. She was passed around from government official to foreign dignitaries. And she put together, she got rescued from the program by her partner, Mark Phillips. And he deprogrammed her, which I think took a year, maybe more, slightly less.
Wow.
Then she compiled all the data that she had. She went into court to try to get this opened up in court and get some compensation. And then they invoked the National Security Act of 1947 and threw her case out of court. And so she took all that information she had compiled and turned it into a book, which is called Transformation of America. And in that book, she names names. She names names of people that are Democrats, that are Rhino Republicans. She names names. So if you really want to know who the real Nazis are, those are some steps you could take to see for yourself.
Right. As you point out, Jim Marrs really linked the permanent sort of Nazis that were in the United States under Operation Paperclip, really transformed into the globalist agenda in the United States. They've never gone away. They've taken over the financial institutions. And recently, Catherine Austin Fitts, of course, who worked, I think, at the U.S. Treasury under the Reagan administration. At the time, she sat down.
Yeah, we don't know what's with the crowds. It's a new one.
For people that, it shocked a lot of people that didn't know this about the international banking cabal that runs everything. She also talked about where all of this money had been funneled into these black budget programs in the United States, including massive underground cities in the United States, the secret space program. So maybe we can just walk back a little bit for our audience here.
Sure.
If they're uninitiated.
Talia, you haven't got a crown. I've got no idea why. We don't know what these crowns are. They just showed up today. And if someone joins, you soon to go down the list a bit more. Like on number 3 now.
How would you describe the secret space program, and how would you describe your involvement with it when you were in the United States Air Force?
Great question.
Okay, well, one of the best beginning points is a book that was published years and years ago. It was called Alternative 3. And the authors of it, after it was published, it was so sensational. And it actually, the culmination of the book was getting their hands on a video of Mars. And it hadn't been tampered with color-wise. And there was some kind of blue sky there. And the information in it also said that there was air on Mars. And there was just a brief clip that said those things, and then suddenly it went. But in Alternative 3, there was all these scientists that got together, per the information in this book, who got together and thought, what are we going to do about global warming? And Alternative 1 was to blow holes in the ionosphere to let the global warming gases out, which is really a horrible idea and was scrapped. The second Alternative 2 idea was to build massive underground bases whereby the world's elite could take refuge underground in the event that the surface of the planet became unlivable. Now that's the first time that I ran into underground base information. And it has,
Diane, he's mad going near that doll.
as far as I'm concerned, proceeded apace. I live not very far from the Dulce base, under Archuleta
In New
Mesa.
Mexico?
Yes, it's about an hour's drive from where I live. I have no desire to go there. I've had enough. I've had enough happen to me in my life. I don't want any more. So, but I know that it's out there. I remember Phil Schneider talking about all the different levels.
Yeah, Tally, you didn't dodge the crown. You ended up getting crowned. I hope it's not a bad thing.
On the top, the upper levels are occupied by humans. The lower levels are occupied by extraterrestrials who are doing experimentation on humans down there. And I don't know if this is current. I know it was current in the past. It was happening in the past. I'm not sure about what the status of the base is today. So, but there's that one, and there's all these trains. Some of the research I found early on was videos of these huge tunnel boring machines that actually heat their way through the rock and vitrify the rock through melting as they pass through the rock, making these huge tunnels and hollowing out huge areas underground. And when you vitrify the rock, its vitrification is the rock is melted to the point where it turns to a type of glass. And it makes for a very strong thing. It's not like a tunnel where you have to prop it up like in a mine. It's a very strong, it leaves a very strong wall that's not going to collapse unless it gets exploded somehow.
So your involvement in the space program. So I think for a lot of people who are sitting there saying, well, okay, she's talking about books and things that have been written about it, but you experienced this firsthand. So,
yes.
And you talked at the beginning about other people who are, there are many other people like you.
I don't want to take too much time with it. Yeah.
Yeah, there are many other people. Sorry, let me just finish that thought. There are many other people like you out there who have this information, who are sitting on this information. Some of them have come forward. Some of them have already gone on the record about the secret space program. You are, but there's very few. There are only a handful of people who've spoken out about this. So what is the secret space program?
The secret space program is, it kind of fits in with that Alternative 3 book, was a venture out into space to colonize Mars and have a base on the moon as kind of a jumping off place to go to Mars. That was in Alternative 3 also. So my personal experience with that was being in the military, doing my job as an auto track radar operator, and then I got out of the military, and I thought that was really all there was to it. So, but after I got out of the military, certain situations were causing me what I didn't realize at the time was pretty severe PTSD, severe anxiety attacks, where my heart would take off at a mad gallop, and I would have trouble breathing. And I just was like, where the heck is this? Where is this coming from? I don't have any experiences that even help me to attach to this. So my body was having PTSD, but I didn't really realize what it was for. So I went through this about 9 years, and I nearly committed suicide because the anxiety and the rages got so.
Hey guys, did you see another little boy had a vision of Jesus? It's getting a bit of traction like that other boy.
Bad. I was afraid I was just making my family miserable. And I decided not to commit suicide. Spiritually, I think it's a really bad idea. I won't go into the story around that, but it's a bad idea. So I thought, well, I can't go on living like this, so I got to make it.
Diane, Paul Begley's going to come and sing at my my birthday party.
Healing.
I paid him 49 wasps. And
out of that commitment, which was a very powerful commitment to healing, I encountered the fact through a friend.
No,
that I had 3 months of missing.
I'm not 75. I'm 62.
80. when I was serving in the Air Force and out on the Nevada test site on the radar range. And I was taken out in the middle of the night to test the radar on UFOs.
Thanks, guys.
And they couldn't be tracked, which was what they were hoping for, I imagine.
I'm actually only doing this one today, guys, because I'm going out for lunch. So after this one, I'll be out.
They were either real UFOs or I saw them in the sky after we ran the radar trying to track them. They couldn't be tracked. And then I was taken to some kind of facility that I think may have been Area 51. You know, they wanted to keep me in the dark. They gave me fatigues to wear that night with no rank insignia, no name tags, no identifying marks of any kind. Me and the other people that were out there to run the radar were forbidden to speak to each other at gunpoint.
Wow.
Make sure you're connected. The writing's on the wall.
Renault Arcana, like no other. The time you steal away for yourself. The smile shared with a loved one. These are the moments that matter most, because home is where life happens. Sail on now. Oz Design.
Hey boy, next.
Getting online after you move is
Thanks,
simply
guys.
broadband. Even your dog could do it.
Boy, you're a good boy. You're a clever fella. You clever little.
Good job, mate.
That's Aussie broadband. That's the actual Aussie way.
Cost of living through the roof, but still need an escape? Well, you deserve a holiday. So ABG.
They were quite serious about isolating us from each other and any kind of sharing or talking we might have done.
No, we're going to a Chinese restaurant.
Which was terrifying.
Yes, with a beer. I'm actually got a beer now.
And then we were taken to this medical facility, and I personally was taken off into a little room after sitting in the waiting room for a while, and I was injected with an experimental chemical. They kind of tricked me into it. I was laying there not knowing what was going to happen. And then some guy with a hypodermic came walking up beside the right side of my head, and he injected me before I really knew what was even happening. And my body went immediately into shock. I was taken down a long staircase and tossed in this little room where I went through the effects of that injection. And I think people were watching me go through the effects through a one-way mirror.
What was the injection?
And then I was taken out of that room. Well, I was still shaken, still in shock from that injection, but not screaming anymore. And I was sexually assaulted in front of 8 people by 2 security guards. And that's really kind of the tip of the iceberg that I found out.
Wow, I didn't know this side of the secret space program. Wow, I didn't know they got slaves in Mars.
But it certainly explained why I was having all the rage.
Hey, I was never here. Good to see you.
All the effects of PTSD.
You're now number 1.
And I found out some years later that one of the things one of those security guards would do to me to traumatize me and to breaking my memory and putting it in the subconscious was he would strangle me until I lost consciousness while raping me. And I learned from Fred Burks, who worked in the White House for quite some time, that is an actual mind control technique that they use on people to sexually traumatize them so badly that they take that memory and everything surrounding it and they break it off and it goes into the deep subconscious where it stays hidden, either forever or until the person finds a way to retrieve it, which I did. And so that was the first part of it. Then I found out through later hypnosis sessions and that I was taken off planet, I was taken to the moon, and I was used for labor and sexual recreation for a week at a time. And the way they were able to get away with it and have me go missing for that week was the people that I would have been working with at the test site out of the radar range were told that I had gotten sick and they put me on a bus back to Las Vegas. And then the people that I would have normally been hanging out with in Las Vegas during that week thought, well, she's just uprange doing her usual shift up there. And so it was possible for me to be missed for an entire week without anybody getting cookies for me. And it's pretty horrible stuff, you know, it's pretty horrible stuff. And so on the moon, there was the hard labor, there was not being allowed to sleep. So you're worked during the day and you're passed around in a group of guys for the night times. And you don't get sleep. These are, yes, human beings.
These are human beings as part of the Air Force or part of the program that are just like using you as a sex slave?
I think
Good question.
some of them were probably military, but I think a lot of them were just workers on the moon. They were contract workers. I think a lot of them were civilian, and they just put us in the room, me and some other girls, and said, you can do whatever you want, just don't leave any marks, you know. And
have you ever spoken to any of these other women? Have any of these other women ever come forward?
Not to me. Not to me.
We know that U.S. Marines have confirmed the trafficking of humans using these advanced aerospace technologies. Some brave.
Yeah, Vas, I believe in the secret space program. I don't believe in split universes where there's the same version of you in a different world. I don't believe in that, but I do believe in a normal secret space program, if you know what I mean by normal.
The United States Marines have come forward and witnessed these advanced craft transporting human bodies, being used for human trafficking purposes. So you're not the only one.
Yeah.
In fact, there's multiple sources on this front who've now confirmed to us here at Redacted that is the case. Have you talked to any of those individuals as well who've also become whistleblowers?
Yeah, I have. Tony Rodriguez, he is got books out there now, and he's speaking and doing all kinds of things with his memories and the things that happened to him. And he actually worked on a base on a moon called Ceres, which I think is.
There's a guy named Corey Good, and he was a big player in the secret space program. Someone took him to court, and he had to get in the witness box. And basically, the judge asked him, "Is what you're saying true, or is it in your head?" And he had to admit it was in his head. Otherwise, he would have got done for when you lie.
Out around Saturn. Can't recall right.
Well, Corey Good, he was full of crap.
But I know the moon Ceres exists, and it's either around Jupiter or Saturn, I think. So anyway, he lived and worked out there, and he was taken as a child. He worked on a base there, but he was taken in childhood, and he was sexually trafficked in childhood for a long time, and just unthinkable horrors happened to him as a child.
So when you saw that Space Force promotional video that basically talks about moon bases, what did you think when you saw that?
Yeah.
Here it is. Like they're not hiding. It's like they're not hiding it anymore. You've worked at the moon base. You've been to the moon base, and here it is in a U.S. Space Force video.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And I was kind of shocked when I first saw it. I thought, wow, that is a huge disclosure for an official Space Force video. And a lot of people probably, it just does a flyby for them.
Welcome back,
and
Talia.
it doesn't really register on how important a statement that really is.
Yeah, I wasn't sure on Corey Good, Vas, because the things he was saying was so outrageous. Surely they're not true, and it turned out they weren't true.
Very important. It admits that our enemies can build bases on the dark.
And I wonder what happened to Donald Marshall, the cloning guy. I wonder what happened to him.
Side of the moon. You know, our enemies can build bases on the moon. Let that sink in. in an official Space Force video. That is a huge disclosure. And I'm pretty sure that that's why we now have a Space Force, that Trump started the Space Force because he knew some things, he knew this stuff was going on out there.
How many bases would you say are on the moon? Is it just one large base? Are there competing bases, a Chinese base, a Russian base, a United States base? What is there? What does it look like?
Yeah, I think that there are several, and I think they're not all human. I think some of them are extraterrestrial bases.
And they're all on the dark side of the moon. We know
they're
the
on
U.S.
the- yeah.
astronauts,
Mhm.
the Apollo astronauts.
Yes.
There's plenty of record of those Apollo
Mhm.
astronauts seeing craft landing on outside the crater perimeters. You can actually listen to the
Mhm.
audio,
Yeah.
which was on the public channel. I think then it was switched
I've
to
listened to
their
that
private
audio
channel.
as well. And,
Yeah.
and
What did they
there's
say?
all
Maybe
this
you can-
stuff out there about the moon landings being faked. And I think a lot of them were. You know, once they got wind of what was going on up there, a lot of them were faked to just give people the appearance that a moon program was continuing. But there was actual travel to the moon by astronauts where they saw these things that you're talking about.
And Edgar Mitchell. And
It wasn't
others who
all
witnessed-
faked.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
secret space program, are we just talking about, I mean, hopefully, and I don't know that the human trafficking component continues at this point, but it seems like it has, or it is.
Yeah.
We know from U.S.
Yeah.
Marines who've been in devastation areas like the Indonesian tsunami.
What did you make of them cloning centers, guys, with Donald Marshall? I'm still not sure about that. I sort of believe it more than I don't.
In other areas where these U.S. Marines witnessed advanced aerospace technology craft, which to us would look like UFOs, landing,
Mhm.
gathering humans for the purposes of trafficking, taking these human bodies, transporting them.
Mhm.
And a lot of times this happens in earthquakes or tsunamis. Again, these are not my words. These are the words of U.S. Marines who've now
Yeah.
blown the whistle on this and witnessed
Yeah.
it in action
Yeah.
under the threat of being shot because they were witnessing what was happening here with this black off the books projects.
Mhm.
So when you talk about the secret space program, is it simply a moon base?
Vast, I've seen footage on the dark side of the moon and them bases. They're like little, they're built like that Mars one they were going to live in for whatever, you know, they built it really well.
How big in scope is it? How many members of the United States military do you think it involves?
Good question.
Well, if it's a way station between Earth and Mars, if the moon bases are a way station between Earth and Mars, then people go there. They may get some kind of conditioning. They may get some kind of orientation, and then maybe they go on to Mars, or they stay and work on the moon. But Mars has people there. If I could talk to Elon Musk, I would say, you know, you wear that T-shirt that says "Occupy Mars." Mars is already occupied. And it's occupied by different factions. Our human faction there is just one. And some memories that I've gotten back recently
She hasn't mentioned the reptilians yet.
are about myself living and working on Mars in what's called the 20 and back.
Oh,
And
20 and
that is true, the 20 and back. Wow.
back.
and those haven't been a 20 and back, yeah. And
Wow.
we don't need to get into that now. If you want to have me back on to talk about that, we can. But I will say that the Cydonia area, where, if you remember back when pictures came out of the Cydonia area, where the pyramids are and the face on Mars are, that actually was a huge city. It was bombed in ancient times, hundreds of thousands of years ago, into smithereens. The face remains, the pyramid remains, but there is now an archaeological dig there going on there with human beings. And I was one of the people that worked on that dig.
You worked on the dig on Mars.
Yes.
Man.
Did it have an atmosphere?
I believe her. She's not stumbling. over her words. She's coherent. She's thoughtful in the way she's expressing herself. She's not touching her mouth like when liars tell you lies that they subconsciously touch their mouth. She's not doing any of that. She's looking up when she's remembering. I believe this woman.
Sphere? Were you in wearing like?
There is a thin atmosphere on Mars. It's not like on Earth. And I suppose you could liken it to being at a very high altitude. And I think it takes time to get used to it. And sometimes you have to wear masks in certain areas, like wearing masks at the dig, because if we were excavating things and we ran into an ancient pathogen against which we had no defense, the mask was a much more sophisticated mask than the paper masks we have down here. But it would protect us from any ancient pathogens we might run into.
When you see the movie The Martian, the atmosphere is, non-existent basically, and you're going to freeze in a matter of seconds. That's not Mars.
Well, if you go back to that Alternative 3 book where they found a video that said there was air on Mars.
I really want a mechanical pencil.
A new notebook, text disk,
a laptop,
headphones, camera, and all that kind of stuff.
New term, new school supplies. Shop our everyday low prices at Office Rates.
Elio is about to go
The new aliens are looking for me!
where no one has gone before.
This is the most beautiful.
And the book was such a threat to the powers that be back then, all those years ago, that they had to backpedal and say, oh, it was just fiction. This book was all just fiction. We just thought it would be fun to publish this book as fiction. You go back and read that book today with the kind of knowledge that we have of, at least some people knowledge that we have that's going on today. That book probably was most likely was not fiction at all.
Yeah.
They wanted to know if there was air on Mars to find out if they could go there and build bases. Again, underground bases were for people to escape the surface if the surface of the Earth became unlivable. Same thing with the Martian bases. Okay, they wanted to have an escape place to go to in case Earth became uninhabitable through thermonuclear war on a global scale. I'm not sure our extraterrestrial friends would allow a global scale thermonuclear war. They have shut down nuclear warheads in Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project videos multiple times. Nuclear weapons facilities have been shut down all the way down to the backup batteries. So I'm not sure that a global thermonuclear war would be allowed to happen. But
would they allow Elon
some
Musk?
of the other lower yield things. Would they allow?
I've often
Elon
wondered
Musk
that. Sorry, we have a little bit of a delay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I've often wondered that. We saw the Maelstrom Air Force Base. Of
Mhm.
course, we've seen the Minuteman nuclear missiles shut offline, turned offline with fuel.
Talia, what do you think? Oh, I believe they've got the technology that they've got in Star Trek and Stargate. I believe they've got that technology, and them shows were based on the technology.
Those just hovering right over top
Right.
of them. I've often wondered, would they allow us to have a nuclear war? Would they just stop it in its tracks? And then I guess the other question would be, what about Elon Musk? Like, are they going to allow him to actually go to Mars?
Well, he may go there, but he's going, if he doesn't have some idea of what's there already, he's in for a big surprise. He's in for a big surprise. And as far as blasting with nukes or doing some kind of terraforming, he may find out that terraforming isn't really necessary unless they want to enhance the atmosphere. I think Mars lost a lot of its atmosphere in that ancient war I mentioned a few minutes ago that blew up the Cydonia area.
Who is the war between?
Yeah. And that's why I mentioned genetic experimentation. You know, while I was living and working on Mars, there was more sexual exploitation, but there was also genetic manipulation. Women were used as a breeding vessel for hybrid offspring. If we found viable DNA at the dig, that DNA was taken back to a laboratory, it was mapped, and if it was found to be some kind of bipedal humanoid in the mapping of the DNA, they would put it together with human DNA, usually the DNA of the woman that was going to gestate the hybrid. And they would put the DNA together and they would create a fetus. And
see, this is detail you just don't come up with on the top off the top of your head.
you didn't get meal times. You got regular meal times on Mars, and that was it. There's no going to the refrigerator for a midnight snack. You get breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and that's it. If you miss one of those meals, oh well, too bad, you don't get to eat it that day. So they would put fertility drugs in our food if the women there to get pregnant for these genetic gestations, I'll call them. So and every other time, if they didn't want us to get pregnant, they would put contraceptives in our food. But if they wanted us to get pregnant, they would put fertility drugs in the food. And then when we had to participate in the sexual recreation sessions, and we got pregnant because we were on fertility drugs, then they would find out about the pregnancy. They would take us to a lab. They would remove the human fetus and put the hybrid fetus in. And we would carry it until almost full term. And then we'd be taken back to the laboratory and they would take it out. And they would take it away, and none of us women ever got to see it. We never got to see what was growing inside of us.
Could have been a
How
blessing.
many times did this happen to you?
I'm not sure how many, but I know it happened multiple times. I'm still kind of in the process on Mars. I'm still in the process of trying to get at more of these memories. I have a special process to do it, and I hope to get back to it soon. Anyway, it's human trafficking is a monstrous thing to do to human beings. And I remember when I was on the table the first time when they were going to do the implantation procedure, and I said, I'm just going on record saying, I don't want this. I don't want anything to do with this. I don't want this, whatever you're doing to me, I don't want it. And they just kind of looked at me with a blank face and put me under anesthesia and did it anyway. You know,
And this was in the early 1980s?
So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so you have no idea how many other women or men were a part of this process, because it was so secret.
Well, there was a lot. There were a lot of people. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I was selected to work on the dig because that's been archaeology and paleontology were strong interests of mine when I was a child and up into adulthood. So they probably thought I would have an affinity for working there. They were right. I used to look around and work there and look at things and think this would be my dream job if only I wasn't a captive here. You know, it was pretty incredible to work there, but not as a captive, not, you know.
So the base that you were on Mars, would you say it was in the Cydonia area?
Yeah, it was a separate compound. There was like a main base. When I was brought to Mars, I was brought to Mars via a jump room, which is kind of like a Stargate. And
I was wondering if she was going to bring up the jump room. It's like a Stargate, she said.
The origin point was, I believe, at Area 51, out of the Nevada desert, and then it exited on Mars. And the first thing that happened to me when I got to Mars was I was told to go to a big room. There was an orientation going on. And in the orientation, they basically said, you're going to be assigned work here. And there are these sexual recreation sessions and you will participate in them. You have no choice, you know, and then you do your work. And if you behave yourself and you're obedient, you will earn privileges. And if you're disobedient, you will get punished. And the punishment was both physical and psychological, and it was very bad.
And just to be clear, this is while you were still in the United States Air Force. Like these were orders.
Yeah.
This wasn't just a suggestion.
Yeah,
these were orders.
Yeah. This was something, I don't know if it was orders, but when people, let's just look at this, okay? Einstein's theory of special relativity. If you're flying at or beyond the light speed, you're not just traveling through space, you're traveling through time. Okay?
Wow.
And you have to, if you're going to have a spacecraft, it's going to have very sophisticated computers to navigate not only space, but also to come out of light speed in your right time frame. So this is where the Trunnion back thing comes, because they take you out of your life at one point in time, and they send you someplace, and you do a job there for 20 years, for lack of a better term, and then they take you back, they put you in a med bed, and they regress your age back to the age that it was when you were taken originally, and then they put you back into your life, and here's a mind bender, just before you were taken, at a time just before you were taken. That way there's no missing time to track. You know, you might have memories, you might have all kinds of feelings and things. It is mind-blowing.
They put you in some sort of a med bed.
You might have feelings, but
this med bed is almost like a time capsule that actually reverses your aging process.
Reverses the aging.
Wow.
Back to a previous version of yourself. And the technology exists. Now
they have this technology. So they could, that's what's so infuriating to me is that, you know, we've done a lot of these stories on this show about all the horrible stuff that they have, but of course they have, you know, when I sat down on Tucker's show a few months ago, and we were talking about this very subject, and he said a lot of it is very demonic, very almost like warmongering material.
Oh, good answer. What's she going to say about the demonic bit of it?
According to my sources, incredible technology that's used to heal people, like if you've a missing limb. With just the wave of a wand, a limb is repaired and restored.
Right.
Now you're telling me a med bed that can take people back maybe before they have cancer.
It's a matter of regrowing the telomeres in the human body and doing another frequency-based restorative process. After I had a hybrid baby or a fetus gestation, and they took it out of me and sent it away to another lab, they would put me in a med bed to completely heal the effects of the gestation. And then I would be put back to work. And, but I still had the emotional trauma of going through the experience, you know, even though my body was put back together as if it had never had that happen to it.
Real Foods. It's real food for the real world.
Flight Centre, your centre for travel.
Illusion emails run massive stock inventory reduction sale. Illusionbuyers.com.au.
Have we been kidnapped?
They call it recruited.
Who's they?
I mean, this is like something out of Star Trek where you step onto a teleporter pad to be transported up to the Enterprise, and they're able to remove the disease from your body in that transportation process where they're ripping.
Talia, we were talking about Corey Good earlier. He got he got taken to court over what he says. I think someone sued him, I'm not sure. And the judge, it come down to the judge and he said, is what you're saying in your head or is it a true thing? And Corey had to admit it was in his head. So Corey's a bit of a fake, I think.
And stitching them back together when you arrive on the Enterprise. I mean, it's
Have you ever heard? Yeah, have you ever heard of the energy enhancement system?
No.
No. Okay. Well, that's a technology that has come out in the United States and the world over the last few years, and it's a frequency and energy technology where there are these screens and they have colored codes that kind of go up and down the screens. And there is a frequency generated by them that kind of gathers in the middle of this big room where the screens are. And it has all these different effects. It can repair mitochondrial function. It can clean the blood. It does several things. One of the things it actually does is it has an anti-aging effect by regrowing telomeres. And this is technology that you can access and go visit today. You'd have to spend a lot more time in this environment than what a med bed would require, you know, to get those benefits. But the technology exists, and one of the things it is purported to do is regrow telomeres, which are the aging tags in our cells. Wow. You know, we're born with long telomeres, and as we age, they get shorter. So this regrows them to long again, and that's a youthening restorative effect.
So, okay, we have this med bed, which is just blowing my mind.
I don't know, Talia, I believe this girl.
And you're blowing my mind that this technology is here and we have access to it, but you'd have to spend more time in this environment. But you also mentioned, because I was going to ask you how you actually got to from point A to point B, when they would take you to the moon base or to the Mars base, this Stargate. Can you explain what that is and how it works?
Well, it was a small room. I was taken in there with one other person, and then there was a person who took us in there and operated. We sat in chairs, and this person that brought us in here operated a control panel on the wall, and then all the lights went off in the room, and there was this is what I remember, okay, and I remember a blue glow kind of coming into the room from, it was non-local, it was just kind of a bluish glow. It was dim. And then there was kind of a reddish glow. And then the lights came back on normally. And when we exited the room, we were on Mars. And we were ushered straight into an orientation.
And so our shit, like, I guess I would think that we would use some sort of an anti-gravity propulsion UFO style transportation of humans back and forth. But that's not the case at all. We're using.
Well, I think that both are the case. I think that jump room is used. I also think that spacecraft are used as well.
And I guess one is almost instantaneous, and the other would take minutes, days.
Well, probably days, depending on how fast they wanted to get there. But I think it would take days. And there is another whistleblower who passed away, unfortunately, that said he was on a spacecraft going to Mars for weeks. It took weeks to get there. So I guess it depends on the type of craft and the type of propulsion system that it has. So.
And also maybe the size of the cargo. If they just want to transport one individual, they can go to this small Stargate room. How many? Do you happen to know how many of these Stargate rooms are in the United States?
I have no idea. You know, I was really low on the totem pole as far as need to know. They were taking me basically as a slave, as I might have been a laboratory animal. You don't tell a laboratory animal all your secrets and what's really going on, and this is how it works and everything else like that. They just don't treat you that way. You're just a thing. You're just a thing to be used. They don't give you any information.
The secret space program, that was the early 1980s. How big do you think it's gotten since then? The government never shrinks. So do you think it's
I'm sure it's expanded now? Yeah, I think it's much more massive. And like I said, that's part of the reason I really wanted to come on your show, is because this kind of human trafficking is an absolute horror. It's an absolute horror what happens here on Earth to children and adults that get trafficked here on Earth. It's horrific, but it is also horrific out there, and the things that they can do beyond any oversight whatsoever, because they are in control of these facilities and these bases. And it's going to have to be about going to these planets and liberating people like myself that have been used in these programs and rehabilitating them. And then there's the flip side of all this. If we could get rid of all the horrors of the human trafficking, the way people have been abused and everything else like that, and we still have the technology, we could use it to fly out past Mars and mine the asteroid field for rare minerals that we need back on the planet, without having to dig up our home and mess with our ecosystem here. And I'm not a climate change person. That climate change is a hoax. It's a lie meant to try
we
to
all knew that.
bamboozle humanity into thinking that they're the problem. We're the pollution on the planet. And there's so much potential that if we get this horror of human trafficking out of here and get rid of all the secrecy, bring all this stuff out in the open, we have a future that we've only dreamed about in science fiction, like a Star Trek future, or a Stargate SG-1 future where without all the bad. We have so much that is potential of us going out into space and colonizing and doing a better job of it than when we came to the United States and kicked the Indians off their own land. We can't be doing that again, but we could go out there and just think what the possibilities are. They're limitless, and that could be humanity's future. And just like the pioneers that went west, there would be pioneers lined up to go to space and just to see what.
Guys, I'm out after this. I'm going out for lunch for my birthday. It's over in a couple of minutes.
It's out there. And then to live and to work out there and be part of something big that's contributing to humanity in a really good way. That's what we can do once we get the horror out of it.
The stain of the child sex trafficking industry, the human trafficking industry. And I think, as we've covered it extensively on our show, the United States government is the largest purveyor, or had been, at least over the past few years, the largest purveyor of child sex trafficking in the world.
Wow.
And so when you have hundreds of thousands of children that have just come across the border and they're disappeared, and even President Trump said, I don't know where they are. It was all facilitated by the Department of Homeland Security under Alejandro Mayorkas. It was all orchestrated by these NGOs.
And then there's the children of Maui. So many children disappeared during the Maui attack.
I never knew that. A lot of children disappeared. Oprah Winfrey was involved, so it doesn't surprise me at all.
That just leveled the city,
Well, that's what I said. When you have these devastations, when you have earthquakes, when you have tsunamis, it's a perfect cover.
Yeah.
Thanks, Guy. I will.
Again, these
Thanks,
are not my words.
guys.
These are the words of U.S. Marines who witnessed it. But we also have confirmation of, of what's happened at the South Pole Station and being able to use the ice cube neutrino machines down there to carry out and to launch earthquakes and other things like that around the world. I guess, I'll get you out of here on this. I mean, what do you hope? What do you hope your message will do? Maybe if there's anybody in the Trump administration or members of Congress.
He asks some good questions, doesn't he?
Other journalists. What are you hoping your message will do?
Well, I love President Trump. I love what he's working to do for our country. I followed Q because I needed to hang on to some hope that something was going to come through this. And I just thought, like I said, if little old me exists, knowing all that I know from all my years of research and my experiences, then there have to be people out there that know so much more than me and have the resources to do something about it, and the heart and the sense of duty and honor and loyalty to our country to do something about it. And it has to be one hell of a plan to overcome.
Okay, guys, I'm out. God bless.
Plan for us. And basically, I think they've done it brilliantly. It's been really hard to watch, but all the stuff that we've seen play out in front of our eyes during the Trump's first administration